All right, let's talk about something that's probably driven you crazy at some point, the endless cycle of dieting, right? You're frustrated, you feel like you've tried everything, and the advice you get just doesn't work. Well, you are definitely not alone. So, in this explainer, we're going to cut through all that noise. We're going to look at what the science really says about losing fat, and here's the key part, actually keeping it off for good.
So let's kick things off with this idea from author and trainer Ben Carpenter because it's just so true. He basically says that a ton of the diet advice we all hear is completely messed up because it trickled down from super hardcore fitness culture. I mean, just think about that. We're talking about the insane extreme plans made for competitive bodybuilders, people whose literal job it is to get to superhuman levels of lean. And somehow that became the blueprint for the average person who just wants to feel a little better. It's a complete mismatch, and honestly, it sets almost everyone up for failure right from the start. And that right there leads to the million-dollar question, doesn't it? Why do so many diets just seem to fail in the long run? I mean, if you've ever lost weight only to see it creep back on, you know exactly how demoralizing that feels. The diet industry, well, they love to point the finger at our willpower, but what if that's not the problem at all? What if the real issue is the entire approach we've been taught?
Okay, so to really get to the bottom of this, we need to talk about something called the vicious diet cycle. This is a pattern that has way less to do with you or your personal willpower and way more to do with this one-size-fits-all model that we've all been sold for decades. So picture this. You've got two people, right? Person A, they just want to lose a little bit of fat, maybe feel a bit healthier in their day-to-day life. Pretty standard goal. Then you have person B. They're a competitive athlete, and they're trying to get to a ridiculously low body fat percentage for a specific competition. Now, the diet and training plan for person B would be absolutely disastrous for person A. It'd be unsustainable and miserable. And yet, so much of the advice out there in the mainstream treats all of us like we're person B. It just doesn't make sense. And this brings us to a really crucial point. It's not just about willpower. If a diet you've tried has failed, it is not a personal failing. It's not a moral failing. There are these huge, powerful, and often totally invisible forces at play that have a much bigger impact on our success than we ever realize. I love this quote because it perfectly captures the problem. Telling someone to eat less, move more, has been compared to telling a drowning person to just drown less and swim more. I mean, yeah, technically that's the solution, but it's so ridiculously unhelpful, right? It completely ignores the why. Why is the person struggling in the first place? It's the ultimate oversimplification. So what are these invisible forces? Well, a huge one is our environment. You could almost think of it as being full of puppet masters that are pulling strings we can't even see. They're these subtle, sneaky cues all around us that control our eating habits way more than we realize. Let's look at a couple of examples. Just take a look at portion sizes. I mean, over the last 50 years or so, they have absolutely exploded. What you and I think of as a normal serving size for, say, a soda or fries today, our grandparents would have thought it was enormous. This portion distortion, as it's called, has completely messed with our internal compass for how much we're supposed to be eating. And sometimes it's something so simple, like how close the food is to you. There was this one study where they just put a bowl of M&Ms on a desk. When it was just 20 centimeters away, people ate way more than when the bowl was 70 centimeters away. That's it. That's the only difference. It's a totally unconscious nudge. The easier it is to reach for something, the more of it we're going to eat. Period. And it's not just about how much we eat, it's also about what we're eating. Okay, get ready for this. Researchers did a study where they gave people two different sandwiches. Both had the exact same number of calories. One was made with whole foods, whole grain bread, real cheese. The other was processed, white bread, processed cheese. The results? It was incredible. The people who ate the processed sandwich, their bodies burned almost 50% fewer calories just digesting it. So not only are processed foods often less filling, our bodies literally don't have to work as hard to break them down. But okay, our environment, that's only half the story. There's another factor that's just as powerful, maybe even more so, and that's the psychological side of things. This is what we can call the mind game of food. So you would think, it seems logical, right, that making people feel bad about their weight would be a great motivator. A little shame to kickstart them into action? Well, the research again and again shows the complete opposite is true. Feeling shamed or embarrassed about your weight doesn't increase motivation to exercise. It can actually kill it. So that leads to a really important question. Okay, if shaming someone doesn't help them exercise more, does it at least help them eat less? You might think the answer is yes, but, well, let's see. And the answer is a big, fat, clear no. It doesn't. In one mind-blowing study, they had one group of people read an article with a stigmatizing headline like "Lose weight or lose your job." The other group read a totally neutral article. Afterwards, they offered both groups snacks. The results? The group that read the shaming article ate significantly more calories from the snacks. Just let that sink in for a second. Stigma doesn't make people eat less. It makes them feel bad, and then they cope with those bad feelings by eating more. And this human drive to escape negative feelings, it is incredibly powerful. To prove it, here's a wild fact from another study. They left people alone in a room with nothing to do except for a little button they could press to give themselves a mild electric shock. And some people chose to shock themselves just to escape the feeling of boredom. Now, if we are willing to literally shock ourselves to escape a negative emotion, is it really any surprise that we turn to something as pleasurable as food to escape feelings of stress or sadness or shame? Okay, so we've spent all this time tearing down the old broken model. It can feel a little bleak, but now for the good part. What do we build in its place? The solution isn't another strict diet. It's about finding a whole new, much more sustainable framework, a flexible approach. The real answer here is making a shift away from what psychologists call rigid restraint. You know, that all or nothing thinking where food is either good or bad, and if you eat a bad food, you've ruined everything. We need to shift away from that and towards flexible restraint. This is a much more balanced approach where no single food is off limits. It's about ditching the guilt and truly understanding that being consistent is so much more important than being perfect. And the research is super clear on this. This flexible mindset is linked to better long-term success and, maybe even more importantly, better mental health. So what does this actually look like in the real world? Well, when you look at people who successfully maintain a healthy weight for the long haul, they're not following some crazy, rigid plan. Instead, what they've done is build a personal toolbox of helpful behaviors. They find ways to be active that they actually enjoy. They monitor their habits, but without judging themselves harshly. And, this is key, they learn how to problem solve when life inevitably throws a curveball. The whole game is about being adaptable. And all of this really boils down to a new philosophy. It's simple, but it's also incredibly profound. And it's the thing that can finally help you break that vicious diet cycle. It's all about being consistently good, not just trying to be perfect every once in a while. And this quote right here, this is really the core message of this whole thing. A good diet that you can follow consistently will be better than a perfect diet that you can't stick with. Sustainability is everything. Think about it. That perfect diet plan that makes you absolutely miserable and you can only stick with for 3 weeks, it's completely useless. A good, flexible, enjoyable approach that you can actually live with, that's the thing that's going to change your life. So we want to leave you with one final question to think about. What if we just reframed the entire goal? What if success isn't really about chasing some random number on a scale? What if, instead, success is about finally building a healthier, more peaceful, and truly sustainable relationship with food and with your own body? That, right there, might just be the most powerful transformation of all.